Hey there, happy Tuesday. I'm your drop-in host Rose, and for today's drop-in we're doing something a little bit different. It's been raining pretty heavily for the past week or so here in Aspen. Monsoon season is absolutely here and we're experiencing it and pretty grateful for it as it's reduced a lot of fire danger. However, monsoons, rain, a lot of the trails are not particularly accessible or really fun to be on right now. Some outdoor activities may be just not your jam in the rain, and that's okay. There's a lot to do in Aspen that doesn't involve being outside, and one of those things is the Stallard Museum, where I am now, and you can get a little history tour about the beginnings of Aspen all the way up to now. So we're gonna go inside and see what it's all about. Let's go.
Good morning. My name is Nina Gabianelli. I'm the Vice President here at the Aspen Historical Society. I'm in charge of all the education and programs that we do here. And welcome to the Stallard Museum. Thusly named because Jerome Wheeler, whose photograph is over the fireplace mantel here in the parlor, actually built this home back in the late 1880s. And we have this beautiful front parlor and dining room set in the fashion of the 1890s. High, wealthy Victorian era. We just added this beautiful wallpaper to more or less complete the look, if you would. We have beautiful artifacts, paintings, photographs, and wonderful things, including even Jerome B. Wheeler's commemorative sword from the Civil War. Now, Jerome Wheeler built the house, but it's reported he never spent much time here. His wife supposedly never spent a night in the house. A beautiful Queen Anne style Victorian mansion on a full city block, the only home that sits on a full city block without an alley. 3 chimneys, 7 fireplaces, fully electric and with a toilet inside, 1888. This was an extraordinary property. And in 1905, Mariella Stallard moved into the house with her husband and her 2 boys. And Mariella is over the fireplace mantel here in the dining room. Mariella Stallard moved into the house in 1905. And at that point, it was still one of the nicest homes in town. But by the time she leaves the house in 1945, the house had begun to fall apart. Her bed was in the front parlor with umbrellas over it because the roof leaked so badly and the walls had deteriorated that it rained inside. Now, we've renovated the home. The Pepkes purchased it in 1945, fixed it up, didn't live here, and the Historical Society has had this beautiful building since 1969 when we purchased it from the Pepke estate. And we use the downstairs in the fashion of the Victorian era. However, upstairs on the 2nd floor, we opened up the bedrooms and created a gallery space. And our current exhibit is called Decade by Decade, Aspen Revealed. So let's go upstairs. This is the original staircase to this home. We even have a back staircase that was used by the servants. Now, our exhibit, Decade by Decade, was an opportunity for us to, first off, display some of our wonderful artifacts. We have probably the largest archive on the Western Slope, if not the largest public research facility. And through this exhibit, Decade by Decade, Aspen Revealed, we do go decade by decade looking at the population, how it grew, came down, stayed low. In fact, the lowest population in Pitkin County was recorded in 1950, believe it or not, and then back to where we currently are today. So we start in the 1870s with the native peoples of Colorado, the Ute people, the Uncompahgre Band to be specific. And we travel through the 1880s as the early mining era, as our population went from 0 to close to over 12,000 people by 1890. The 1890s, we saw extraordinary wealth coming into this area. We were the 3rd largest city in the state, and we produced 1/6 of our nation's silver. This little nugget here is a piece of the largest silver nugget ever taken out of a mine, out of the smuggler, in 1894. The sad part was in 1893, the US government stopped buying silver, which led to our imminent decline. So through the early 1900s and 1910 teens, through the First World War, our community began to decline. And it was slow, but it was steady. Ranching became the mainstay for people's livelihoods here. But post-World War I, our community really was in a solid depression. It doesn't mean that we were at our lowest population-wise. In fact, we had over close to 3,000 people living here into the 1920s. And that was when tourism in Colorado was being introduced. And we did encourage people to come out into these beautiful mountains at that time. It isn't until the 1930s when skiing was introduced as a commercial, recreational activity. However, those efforts were interrupted by World War II, and that brought the men of the 10th Mountain Division to Aspen. And that is where our renaissance begins, post-World War II. With the introduction of the Ski Corporation, Lift 1 went up Aspen Mountain. Dedicated in 1947, it was the world's fastest, longest, and highest chairlift. It took 45 minutes to get to the top in this single chair, okay? People came. In fact, by 1950, we hosted the FIS races for the first time ever outside of Europe in Aspen, 1950. The year prior and the summer before that, Mr. Pepke had introduced the idea of mind, body, and spirit philosophy through the writings of Goethe with the Bicentennial Convocation and Music Festival, and thus began our 12-month-a-year economy. Cultural events in the summertime, winter sports in the winter. We begin to grow with the addition of Buttermilk Mountain and Aspen Highlands into the 1960s. Step with me. So the 1960s saw extraordinary growth in our community in through the 1970s. We're all alarmed at the amount of growth today, but in reality, the biggest growth spurt that I see is from 1960 to 1980, right? When our population goes from around 2,000 to well over 12,000 in Pitkin County. Now, in the 1960s, they were growing. They were going to have a whole ski village out in Hunter Creek, believe it or not. So the idea of development is not a new story here in Aspen. In fact, we kind of tend to do the same thing over and over again, with wealthy investors investing in our community and thus making a wonderful place for everyone to come and visit. And so we get into the 1970s, and yes, times were good. It was fun to be here, the music was awesome, and I think it's what attracted some of us to the area still today. And I hope that the people that come after us will be just like us, everybody wonderfully attracted to the beautiful amenities that our mountains have to offer. And I thank you all for visiting us. Don't forget to join us perhaps on Saturday this weekend when we host our ice cream social. It'll be from 2 to 4 on Saturday outside on our beautiful grounds. And there is a special performance of A Briefly Complete History of Aspen 2.0, updated to include the last decade. Thank you all very much. We'll see you soon.